The world of television seems lavish both in its emphasis on material goods and its excessive praise on successful people. This contrasts sharply with the world of the master puppeteer, in which Okada remarks that a gift would just burden him on his way to paradise, and Jiro's success as a puppeteer is acknowledged by no more than a brief touch. Would our world be improved if our views of material goods and success were more like the views presented in Patterson's novel? I think that the Western world probably knows that their material goods corrupt them. I think they know that there's probably something wrong with the way they live, but no one's able to give up this lifestyle. And then the Buddhist monks come in with their robes and shaved heads and their peaceful way of life. They want nothing to do with material possessions. They want nothing to do with praise. They just are. They have realized that desire leads to suffering, and that when one finally gives up desire, one can be free. But it would be unpractical and impossible for the world to start living like the people in The Master Puppeteer, because of everyone's exposure to technological advancements. This relates to Valve's Team Fortress 2, in that the introduction of possessions can ruin a society, a community, while at the same time enhancing it. Back in 2007, a game by Valve was released called Team Fortress 2. It was a class-based FPS, meaning that each of the 9 classes had different abilities and served different purposes, and that they all made up a team and could not succeed when on their own, with balanced classes, meaning that each class held the same value, and no unlockable abilities or weapons. The only unlockables were achievements, little pictures with descriptions of what you had to do to unlock them. The achievements served no real in-game purpose rather than to gain prestige among friends and other gamers, and to have some fun doing ridiculous things to unlock them. This was the game's true reward system, a few pictures that would light up if a certain amount of maps were played, or if you jumped a certain height, anything like that, really. Throughout the course of 2007 and the beginning of 2008, the company who produced the game released the first set of updates. These updates included a few major bug fixes, some new achievements, and a few maps that were available for play in-game. By April 2008, they released the first class update. The class update was for the medic, a German person who basically went around healing people and shooting other people with needles. He became the most played class for the first few weeks after the update, and completely broke the game's sense of balance. Now, in 2010, every class except for one has been issued updates, each with their own set of weapons and hats. Hats are extremely rare items that are found after much play, as the drop rate of randomly getting items, for each hat is very low. Hats are generally used to show off how much one plays the game. These updates have always kept players wanting to play the game, at the cost of greatly unbalancing it and ruining the game's initial purpose. To be a team-based, class-based FPS that would only allow players to succeed when using real teamwork and dedication. Now, it only takes a few hours overnight in a server that repeatedly makes the player respawn, causing the drop rate to greatly increase, letting the player obtain powerful weapons and items much faster. Now, teamwork doesn't matter unless playing in a server where acquired items have been disabled. And yet, who wants to play in any of those servers when you can be having so much more fun using the weapons you've earned that have special abilities and cool effects? This is exactly it. The option has always been there to get rid of these items, but nobody chooses it because they've been overcome with attachment to new items and abilities. People are always complaining about how unbalanced the game is, and yet nobody who complains and runs a server is willing to shut them off. I think that this game really relates to the Western world and Japan. Started off plain, simple, and nearly perfect. It did everything the creators set out to do and provided hours and hours of fun for players who enjoyed team-based games, much like Confucianism. But after a while of being plain and simple, it got boring. The developers didn't want to lose their players to other games, so they updated it, bringing in hundreds more. I think that if they had kept it the same, nobody would be playing today, and everyone would have moved on. Japan lived in harmony for many years, but people grew tired of isolation, and Japan also feared that they would lose themselves to America and/or European countries. They had to change, modernize, and start being more material-oriented in order to combat external and internal pressures. This reminds me of The Matrix. Would you take the blue pill to stay in Japan and live in ignorance of the outside world, or the red pill to know the outside world and to integrate it into Japan? Would Team Fortress 2 and the world be better if they let go of possessions and excessive praise for success? I think they both would, but it would be really boring. Now that we've been exposed to capitalism and praise, I don't think that we'd be able to easily let go of it all. I think we'd eventually go back to the possessions we grew up with. I think that technological advancements would be far less frequent, or might never even happen again, if we all took up a Buddhist way of life. I'm not bashing Buddhism or Confucianism or anything. I'm just saying that it would start a new dark age in the West if we all took up a Buddhist, non-materialist way of life. There's nothing wrong with not being attached to anything, and there's nothing wrong with never praising anyone, but it would just not be practical if we lived the way the people in the Master Puppeteer did. Nor would it be good if Valve decided to vanilla-ize Team Fortress 2, because it just simply wouldn't be practical, and it wouldn't work. This has been Coleman Kintop.